Hey everyone, welcome back to GameSpot at E3 2017. Joining Miguel and myself is Will and Anoop here to show us Agents of Mayhem. Guys, how's your show been?
It's been great. Yeah, we're super excited to show the game, and it's going really well.
Yeah. So Will, are you going to be driving?
Yeah, I'm going to be driving, showing off Agents of Mayhem. Like Anoop said, we're just we're going into the home stretch here with Agents coming out in August 15th. So just really looking forward to showing off to all the consumers at E3 for the first E3 consumer show.
Yeah, it's been a really sort of exciting year in that there is the mix of the regular developers, games industry, journalists and things, and now the public finally getting their hands on it. What's the reception been like?
It's been really positive. I mean, people have been really excited about seeing all the stuff we have. They're starting to see a lot of the connections to Saints Row that we've had in the past, and they're really responding to the agents and the humor.
I mean, I have to ask, because this game, it's not like a Saints Row sequel, but obviously Gat is back.
Yes, yes.
What is the relationship between the two?
So in Saints Row Gat Out of Hell, Johnny Gat basically gets a choice from God about what he wants to do, and one of the choices the player can make is to remake the universe in a new way, and Agents of Mayhem is essentially our version of that universe that's been created. So he ends up being a Seoul cop, a Seoul, South Korea cop, and so when you see him in Agents of Mayhem, that's his background.
Awesome. All right, so what's happening here?
So here we're being introduced to August Gaunt, one of Legion's lieutenants. Legion is sort of the bad guy of the whole Agents of Mayhem universe.
They have an incredible acronym.
Yes.
League of Evil Gentlemen Intent on Obliterating Nations.
Correct, yes.
So good.
Everything has to have acronyms here, so. So this is a lieutenant you'll face sort of in the middle of the game, but the idea, he might look like a pop star you recognize, and one of the cool things is our audio guys actually wrote pop music for him that you'll hear in the game. It's really catchy, but also pretty terrible.
Yeah, nefarious tones.
Yes.
All right.
So the one major takeaways I got when I first played this was it's very much inspired by 80s cartoons, but with a very mature themed angle.
Yes.
Talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of the way, I grew up on these, a lot of the guys at the studio did, other people as well, and the way I look at it is like if we had kept making cartoons for ourselves, this is what you might see in the end. Yeah, so it's not for kids for sure, and there's definitely a lot of violence, a lot of foul language and other things. So here we see Will is choosing his squad. You have 12 agents that you can pick from, and you want to pick 3 at a time, and you take them into the city, and you play as all 3 of them at one time. You can swap between them as you're in the field.
So how do you know how to create the best squad? Can you prioritize, some things other than others? Oh, he's gone full Hulk there.
Yeah, so all the agents have their own skins that you unlock as you play through the game. In terms of the squad selection, it's really about your personal choices, how you play the game, what kind of agents you respond to, what kind of abilities you really like, and then you have gadgets, and they level up, and you can put points into different stats, and those will allow you to sort of customize the squad to your play style.
It's kind of reminiscent to me as a little bit like Mass Effect 2, in that you had this big cast of characters and you could only take 3 out into the field, essentially. What's it like, sort of, because I imagine you have to write for the characters and those characters must interact, and that must be a sort of pinboard with red string going from one to the other.
We have a very big database that our writers got very familiar with to keep track of everything. And one of the cool things is you're playing through a mission, since you can pick any of the 12 characters, we had to write specific lines for each of the characters when they respond. And that's a lot of fun, is just sort of hearing how they respond to different things in the game.
Oh wow, I thought she was getting run over.
Yeah, no, that's all their agents have their unique entries into those vehicles. They're very much based on their characters. So Jewel that Will is playing on right now, she's our fashionista engineer. So she has a turret that she deploys, and that's her main way of taking out Legion.
And the kind of storefronts with the Korean lettering, that is because the game is set in Seoul, Korea.
Yes, correct. So Legion has attacked all over the world, but right now the Ministry of Pride, one of the 7 ministries of Legion, they are focusing their efforts in Seoul, and the point of the game is to basically find out why Dr. Babylon and his ministry are here and what they're up to, and then basically to stop them. So here Will's selected Oni, who's former Yakuza hitman, and he's really good at critical hits and fearing his enemies. So he puts them in a panic mode, and then they can take advantage of that.
All right.
Would you say that the game is designed in a way that that you're encouraged to decide on a threesome early on, or is it pretty forgiving if you're feeling like a certain group of characters just aren't working for you?
Yeah, no, we absolutely want people to experiment, to try out different characters. So, you know, if something's not working, you can go back to the arc, switch out for a different 3. If you have some characters that are lower level, when you play with them, they will actually increase at a faster rate, so they can catch up to the ones that you're already playing with. And basically, the idea is we want people to try different configurations and figure out which works best for them.
Well, it also kind of depends on what type of gameplay style, like what you're trying to get out of the game. If you're just looking for having a story experience, if you're looking to learn about the characters, you're probably going to ramp the difficulty down, because there's 10 different or 15 different.
There's 15 and then we actually unlock more as you get higher up in the.
So you can scale the difficulty depending on how much experience you want to get out of it. But if you don't want it, if you just want to get the story, then you have it on the lowest level. You get a minimal amount of experience, but you get the story from the game. And that's all about personality when you're choosing the agents you want to play as. If you're doing the higher difficulties, you really have to be more strategic about which guys you're picking, how the squad's going to relate to each other, and how you can combine their abilities with one another.
And I mean, to piggyback off Miguel's question there, are you going to have all of the agents playable from the get-go, or do you have to introduce them slowly? You know, I mean, imagine onboarding. Yeah,
it's definitely, it got overwhelming when we saw in playtest. So what we have 3 agents that you're introduced to right from the beginning, Fortune, Hardtack, and Hollywood. And then once you get past the first sort of sequence, you get access to about half of them. Then you play their unlock mission. You can learn more about them, how their abilities work, how their weapons work. And then you can choose whether you want to continue with them or go back to other ones. Yeah. And then as you go through further in the game, we'll unlock more of them over time.
Right.
But by the time you're in the middle of the game, you will have access to all of them.
I remember playing the scene yesterday. It was actually one of my favorite scenes when you got to hear Gaunt react to the fact that you were stealing one of his cars.
Yes.
In fact, he named one of his cars Tiffany, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We have Gaunt sort of interact with you quite a bit during these missions, because we want you, by the end of it, to feel like, yeah, you really want to kill this guy.
Yeah, I mean, how would you compare sort of the type of humor this game has versus like the last couple Saints Row games?
So what I would say is I feel like the humor is more character-based and more based in the genre of the game that we were making here. But it's still got a lot of the over-the-top. We don't take ourselves too seriously. The agents don't necessarily take everything too seriously, but they understand they have a job to do, and they're going to do it.
So we see here crafting ready. Have we been collecting things, and what can we craft?
So as you kill enemies, you'll get these sort of crafting materials, and you can use that to craft new gadgets for the agents. These are things that will either modify how their special abilities work, their weapon works, or sort of give them a passive ability. And that's a big part of the customization aspect of the game, is figuring out what gadget loadout you want for the agents on top of which ones worked well together.
So not only are you leveling up the individual agents, but there's also leveling up the agency as a whole, the arc, and doing that because you have a vehicle bay, you have a weapons bay, you have abilities. There's a lot of leveling up and really customizing what agents you want to play as. All right. So getting to what Miguel was talking about earlier, we're just about to hit that. We're about to find Tiffany here.
Yes.
Hidden away. This is August Gaunt has this garage full of his cars. Most of them are booby-trapped. But this one in particular is his favorite. I can bypass this as the little hacking minigame, but since Yeti has
the master programmer ability, he can bypass any hack in the game.
Where should I be going? One of my buddies said his wife's sister's boyfriend saw Gaunt locking down the ancestral temple. That's the best lead we have, I'm afraid.
So that hood ornament, that's actually his microphone, isn't that? If you look at that, you'll see later in the demo that hood ornament is actually a microphone that he uses. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he's a little full of himself, as you can see. Put himself on his own cars.
All right, so this seems like a time trial kind of race.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of it's like a mini game? What are the kind of mini games that we?
So there's the hacking mini game that we saw. There's racing. Additionally, Legion has a lot of activity that they have going on around the world that's not related to the overall like main plot that they're doing. And you go around basically trying to thwart those little things, and you get rewards for those that you can use for crafting and improving your agents.
Can you talk a little bit more about the other lieutenants? From what I've seen, there's some pretty interesting characterizations that sort of, I guess, mirrors the actual agents themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Gaunt is definitely more on the flamboyant side. They're not all quite to that level. But early on, you fight against a weapons manufacturer named Hammersmith. He's basically, specializes in traps and weapons. He fires beams from a satellite from space. He also has a weapon where he's very proud of that he gets to fire off his balls, and he's very excited about all that. And then we also have a K-pop star that is also an AI hologram.
Of course.
Yeah. Steel Toe, who's sort of a transhumanist. He's a cyborg. And then Dr. Babylon himself, who's the Minister of Pride and really interested in robotics, and he actually works for the Morning Star, who you don't really get to meet very much in this game, but he's doing something for the Morning Star here in Seoul.
Sounds like a newspaper.
Yeah.
And I think I recall that one of the leaders of the agents used to be a former lieutenant.
That's right. Persephone is the leader of Mayhem. She actually did work for Legion, but then when found out that they were really more interested in destroying things rather than taking over, she's like, I'm done with that. So she left. She steals technology that lets the agents of Mayhem teleport around the world, which gives them an edge. But because she herself has sort of an ambiguous background, the agents are not necessarily like good guys. They're really there to stop Legion, not to necessarily save the planet. So a lot of times you'll end up killing civilians, which we'll probably end up doing here in this mission. But that's okay, because that's not their job.
Who's Mixer that I can see him popping up in the top?
Yeah, so along with Persephone, there's several other agents that work at the base, the ARC, which we started at the beginning. And we have like Gremlin, who basically builds all the technology, Mixer, who runs the VR rec room, but he's also sort of a DJ, so he and Gaunt have a little bit of a rivalry, and they know each other. And then we have Claymore, who's the weapons specialist, and Quarter Mile, who's in charge of all the vehicle bay.
All right, so this is the mini game.
Yes, this is the hacking mini game.
Nice, perfect hack.
But if Will wanted to make it easy for himself, he would have picked the other character who did it.
Yeah, well, both Jewel and Yeti both can do the bypass, but you won't get the extra XP for completing the hacking mini game if you bypass it like that.
So are certain enemies weak to specific agents? And how, I mean, like, 'cause if so, how are you going to figure out who you'll be coming up against when you're sort of picking who to take out, right?
Right. So in general, when you're fighting, you're going to run across enemies that have shield and armor. You don't need agents that can deal with those, but it's definitely helpful. So, for instance, some of these enemies here have shields. You'll see like a blue bar on top of their health bar, and then on the lower right-hand corner, you can see the specialization. So there's two little icons next to the pictures. So Yeti has the shield breaker icon, so he's good at enemies that have shields. There's also armor piercer, and then the master programmer that we saw earlier. So the idea is you don't have to, but if you take agents that have both the shield, anti-shield and anti-armor specializations, you can sort of switch between them as you find the enemies that have those strengths.
How do you regain health? By switching, can the guys left behind sort of heal up a bit, or do you have to collect?
So enemies will drop health packs. You'll see like little red crosses that will heal your agents. Additionally, when they're not active, they will heal up slowly. And then if an agent actually goes down, sometimes you'll see a purple flare appear on the ground that will resurrect all your downed agents, as well as fill up your mayhem bar, which is sort of your agent's ultimate ability.
Yeah.
That mayhem bar also fills by using their special abilities and killing enemies.
What's the most outlandish sort of aspect of any of the agents, like in terms of powers or abilities?
So one we like is Kingpin. We don't have him in squad here, but he's Pierce Washington from Saints Row. And when he uses his ultimate ability, he drops a boombox in the center of the combat area and makes all the enemies dance. So that's always a lot of fun. Yeti does like this blizzard attack that basically freezes all the enemies around, and then you can go and shatter them. I like Daisy. She's a rollerblading, or not rollerblading, a roller skating derby girl. She's got a big minigun, and when you go to use her mayhem ability, she goes into like sort of minigun tank mode and just mows enemies down.
I remember the gameplay session a couple months ago when we did get to play as Daisy. It was a nice sort of a mission where we focused on her as a character as opposed to actually taking on lieutenants. It was a nice break, but I assume does every lieutenant sort of get their own time to, like, you know, for the player to get to know?
Every agent, you mean? Or
every agent,
yes. Yeah. Basically, every agent has an unlock mission where before you get them to as a normal playable character, you play as them, and then after you've completed their unlock mission, they also have a personal mission where you'll get more of their backstory, more about who they are and why they care about fighting against Legion. And then we also group them in 3, so once you've completed the personal missions for all 3 of a group, you can play a team mission together where you see how they work together and sort of a larger storyline there.
All right, I remember this scene. He has to, like, figure out a password.
Yeah, I think we don't really know the password, so I think we're just gonna have to deal with this guy the way.
That was brutal. I'm disappointed in your problem-solving skills, but I can't say I'm surprised.
So yeah, we found out that Gaunt looks like he's at some kind of rave here in this sort of shipping container. They have this secret club here.
Yo, so what's up? It's your boy Gaunt. All you beautiful peeps came out tonight to help me test my latest invention. The Get Gauntlet 2.0! Hey there, ladies and bros. I want to show you something special.
Oh, wow.
Like anything you've ever seen before. This is the Get Gauntlet 2.0, the VR headset of your dreams. It gives you news, it plays your music, it lets you connect to the important people in your lives. Just another slice of genius from me. Honorary Doctor of Musical Arts, August Gaunt. It's a new age, baby. The age of Gaunt. God, I love y'all so much. And you love me, right? Let me hear it. All you need is love, baby. My love.
So here, Gaunt is using his access to his Legion technology to basically brainwash all his fans.
Good luck, fucker. Gaunt out.
So by the end of this mission, you really, really want to kill
Really
him.
wanna
Yeah, no, he basically taunts you the entire time.
Yeah.
He tries to seduce you with his looks and his music, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yes, Mixer. Thank
Oh
Sorry.
no, the poor brainwash party.
Yeah, they're coming after you. You're not required to kill them, but some people enjoy that. But the main thing is you got to destroy these transmitters and sort of end the brainwashing. So here you can see Will's using Yeti's cold gun, freezing the peds.
When it comes to like a class-based game like this, do you look at other games? I mean, like Overwatch in particular comes to mind. It has, you know, switching heroes and countering, and in some cases some similar abilities like cold gun. Where do you think you place? Like, when you see Overwatch out there, do you want people to think we were also doing it? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you know, for us, it's more about the fact that, like, I grew up like on G.I. Joe and then these kinds of stories, and nobody ever made a game where you actually play as the heroes fighting against the villains, and I think, you know, that's one thing that that's what this game is about, is you get to play as these G.I. Joe heroes, or like G.I. Joe like heroes, but, you know, with more maturity, more craziness, and more fun. So
You can go in the inventory here. We haven't talked about Gremlin Tech at all.
Yeah, so I mentioned before, Gremlin is one of the base agents. She builds technology.
Yeah.
She also builds piece of technology that the whole squad can use. It. You know, it's not specific to any given agent. So here we have what we call the energy spheres that basically will trap all the enemies in the area, and you can basically knock them around, have fun, but eventually they'll just sort of disappear. And it takes care of them very quickly. These are limited use. You craft them, and then you can only use them so much every time. So the idea is they can kind of give you that edge in battle, but they're not gonna always. You can't just spam them.
Is this a good time to use the mayhem?
Yes.
It will be.
Yeah. As soon as he kills this one here. So we get more Legion troops that show up as well.
Yep.
That means there should be just one more.
Oh, come on. There gotta be more than just 3.
I had one.
Yeah,
there
Oni,
we go.
Oni, yeah. So here Oni uses his ultimate. So he basically panics and fears everybody and makes them vulnerable to his attacks. And then it's very easy to crit them as well.
Yeah. What kind of other ultimates have we got?
So Jewel puts down a second turret that basically buffs her and the battlefield and debuffs the enemies. Who else do we have?
I'll show you these in a second.
Yeah.
All right.
One more pulse in my special should give. There we go.
All right.
Yeah, so he has like a blizzard around him
Yeah.
that basically
Oh,
freezes.
Slows
Nice.
and then eventually freezes enemies.
All right, there's one more.
Where is he actually from?
So he's actually Oleg from Saints Row 4. So he's from Russia. He was
Ah.
experimented on back in Russia and became this sort of cold warrior.
So all the agents from Saints Row, or
Not all of them,
just
no.
sort of like reimagining?
Yeah, a few of them are. So we have Johnny Gat back, like I said, and Kingpin and Oleg are the main ones.
I mean, if your booth was any indication with the Magnum PI music and Knight Rider music, I mean, you guys are really doubling down on the 80s theme. Was that always the original sort of like stylistic theme of this game, or did you like toy around with other types of?
I mean, it's always been a big part of the inspiration, and it was just a matter of like when we thought it would be good to sort of emphasize those things versus being more modern or accessible. Yeah, it just seems to work in the right situations.
Yes, but more
So we're gonna go for August Gaunt now.
August Gaunt can mind
See you
control
around.
people.
Shit, that is.
Unfortunately, the demo ends before we get
Before we even get to take him out.
yes.
Fine with
But the final battle with him
nice.
is quite spectacular.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's not long to wait until we can get our hands
No,
on it, right?
yeah, August 15th.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And hope you had a great E3.
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And for all the rest of, to mop up everything else from E3, make sure, of course, you go over to GameSpot.com, YouTube.com/GameSpot. We have all the biggest games from this year's show. So make sure you head over.